Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Colour Cave. My name's Jem and I like to play with art stuff. I have a viewer request video for you today and this is courtesy of Jerry and Tracy, so hello to you two. We are going to look at colour combinations for metallics today. And I know it's something that people ask a lot about because they can't seem to figure it out for themselves. Don't worry, I'm here to help. I have combinations for gold, silver and rose gold, which is something that I've been asked about an awful lot. I am not doing a tutorial on how to colour things with a metallic finish. That has been absolutely done to death. I can highly recommend Peta Hewitt's tutorial on her YouTube channel, La Artistino. So go and check that out if you're looking for methods on how to actually put the colour down on the paper. I'll leave a link in the description for you to go and check that out. So I have combinations for Prismacolor and Polychromos today, but not only that, I'm going to show you how to tweak them and change them so that you can get a set of colours that's going to match your picture perfectly and fit in with your colour scheme. So not only am I showing you combinations that you can go ahead and do right now, but I'm also going to show you how you can pick and choose in the future and learn to pick the colours that are going to go together for your metallic finish. So I'm just going to grab a big jumble of pencils and then we can get going. Alright, so I'm going to start with the Prismacolor combinations simply because that is the pencils that I happen to have to hand. What I have done here is I've just split up a sheet of paper in my sketch pad into silver, gold and rose gold. The Prismas are going to be on this side and the Polychromos are going to be on this side. I also have a separate notepad here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out the colour combinations down here, and I'll let you see that intermittently as I go, and it's just so that you can take a note of them for future reference. So first of all, the thing that I wanted to talk about was the fact that you can see two circles in each section, and it's basically just to give you options so that you can start exploring for yourself in terms of working out metallics. It's one of these colour combination type things that it's not one size fits all. You don't look at something and say, right, I'm going to make that silver, these are the 3 pencils I'm going to use. I want to help you be able to pick out pencils for yourself as well, so this is why I'm doing it this way. So when it comes to silver, it's not really silver, we're talking about metal. It can be any metal. What I will say though is, in terms of making it look more like a precious metal, silver tends to be quite light and quite shiny, and a perfect example is the ring that I'm wearing on this finger. That is sterling silver, and you can see that the highlights are very, very white. But the thing with metal in general is there is a base colour. So obviously for silver it is a sort of greyish tone, for gold it tends to be a yellowish tone, and rose gold is more of a pinky tone. So that's really the basis of how you're going to pick out your colours to make something look metallic, but it's actually more about the reflection of the metal because metal tends to be shiny. Again, I'm not going to go into that in any sort of detail because there's squillions of tutorials that have already covered that. When it comes to silver, you're going to go for your grey selection of pencils, and particularly with Prismacolors you're absolutely spoiled for choice. My two go-to options would be a selection of the cool greys or a selection of the warm greys, and that's what I'm going to show you here. And it's really simple to pick out colours for silver. Basically, because the way that the pencils are graded in terms of the greys, with the Prismacolors it's in percentages, so 10, 20, 50, 70, 90, and all you need to do is pick out 3 pencils that are sort of evenly spaced apart out of that selection. So I'm going to start with the warm greys, and I have chosen for you here 20% warm grey, 50% warm grey and 70% warm grey. Now this will give you what I like to call a sort of dirtier silver. Oh dear. If you're going more for you know, a kind of darker look to your picture, I would go with the warm greys because they do look a bit muddier once you've actually put them down and combined them. Alright, so with these you have a light, a mid and a dark tone. That's the idea, the same way as you would when you're putting together any other sort of combinations. So I'm just going to show you what they look like together, and it's so that you can compare them with the cool greys as well, and you can it's really, I suppose it's just preference really, what you like and what you don't like. As I say, this comes out a sort of darker, murkier type colour. When I'm blending colours, I usually go dark to light. I just find that easiest. But what I always do to begin with is I take my lightest colour and I put a coat of that down first, or a layer of that down first. So I'm showing you in these spherical shapes just because it's easy to show you where, you know, where the blends are and what it's going to look like. So think of this as like a metal orb that I'm drawing, and I'm going to have a light source coming from this direction, just so that you know, and you can see straight away that looks kind of good already. So I'm just using this lightest colour and I'm putting down a layer, bearing in mind my highlight. And when you are colouring metallic objects, it is all about the highlights, because that's what makes it look shiny, is having that highlight there. So just scribbling down, and this is going to look really rough to begin with, but that's okay. So that is the lightest colour, and then I'm going to put down a layer. Oh, got my pencils all mixed up. This is the 50%, and I'm just going to start working in a wee bit more shadow and bring this about halfway across, because this is my mid-tone. One of the things about colouring metallics as well is that depending on how harsh your light source is and how reflective that object is, that will affect your highlights. If it is a very soft light source, you may have quite a gradual gradient through your colours, whereas if you think of chrome is super shiny, and you tend to find that the highlights are very defined. You know, the white area, you could almost draw a line round it. So that's down to you and how reflective you want the object to be. So I'm going in with my darkest one here, and this is the 70%. And it's just a case of building up these layers until you have the desired level of shininess, so to speak. Shininess. I'm going to be saying that a lot in this video, I can tell. But I generally go for putting a layer of each down first. But you can see what I mean already about the murkiness of the warm greys. So, you know, if you were going for a sort of more of a weathered look, you know, if something wasn't brand new and shiny in your artwork or in your colouring page, then this is the sort of thing that you might plump for. Now, I did say that I was going to explain to you so that you could learn to pick out your own colours, and that's exactly what I'm doing. You don't have to use the 20, the 50 and the 70. You can go 10, 30, 50 or whatever. Experiment, try these things out, because that's how you learn. That's how you learn to select colours, and that's how you learn to train your eye and, you know, get your brain to link up with your ideas and pick out something that's going to give you the desired result, you know, what you're actually looking for. I find as well that with coloured pencil and using them for metallic surfaces, it's usually a good idea to burnish or blend out your colours when you're happy with the, you know, the final outcome of the colours and, you know, how you've mixed them and put in your highlights, because metal is usually smooth and it helps to give that smooth finish and get rid of these sort of pencil lines. So that's just something to bear in mind as well when you are drawing or colouring these types of things. So when you are using your darkest colour, again, depending on the light source, I suppose, but it's up to you how many layers you want to use and how dark you want to go with it, because again, that will affect the overall look of the object of whatever it is you're colouring in. So that's something else to bear in mind. There is a lot to think about when you're talking about metallics in terms of technique, and there is no quick fix really. You just have to practice, guys. I'm sorry, I know you want to hear something else, but that's just not the case, I'm afraid. Okay, so now that I've got my colours down, I'm quite happy with that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a colourless blender. Okay, so let's blend this in and get it looking nice and smooth, because that's going to improve the feel of the shininess. Yeah, as with using coloured pencils generally, you can use a white pencil and Prismacolors are quite good for that generally, I find, instead of a colourless blender. And it's also quite helpful if you feel you've gone a little bit dark with your, you know, with your colour choices, and it's not something that's salvageable in terms of maybe erasing it. Using a white coloured pencil to burnish instead of a blender pencil is going to help lighten it up slightly as well. Now, I'm not really touching this top area with the blender because I don't have an awful lot of pencil there. So I'm just kind of avoiding that area, but I'm just trying to smooth this out as much as possible to make it look a bit more smooth and sleek and metallic. Now for the next set, I'm going to do it with the cool greys, and it's the same saturation percentages again. It's 20, 50, 70 that I've picked out, and as I said before, you don't have to use those specific pencils. You can pick something else if you find it suits you better. For example, if you have a very delicate picture, you know, that's maybe quite a lot of pastel shades, you might prefer to have, you know, a much more delicate metallic finish. So perhaps 70% wouldn't be ideal. That would probably be too dark and it would take away from the paler colours in the picture. And you don't want that to happen. So you maybe go, you know, start with the 10% as your lightest shade, so you've barely got a tickle on the paper, and you know, your darkest shade could be the 50, and that would still give you the metallic look because you'd still have the steps between the different shades, but it's just going to be like a much lighter overall finish, and it's just going to fit in better with your composition. So that's my first light layer down. Again, I've just left, you can't really see very well because it is so pale, but I've left a tiny little patch of white here that I've not put any pencil on at all. I'm moving on to my mid-tone, just again the same as before. So in terms of actually blending your metallic colours, you're looking for a nice smooth finish. So a light hand and plenty of layers is the way forward to get rid of all those little pencil circles that you're putting in, because you want it to be as smooth looking as possible, because that helps to add to the, you know, the texture and the fact that it is a very smooth object. So you do have to take a bit of care and patience here. Now you can see already the colour difference between the two. I mean, the warm grey is, you know, warm compared to this. Obviously that's why they call it warm grey gem. But personally, just my own preference, if I was colouring something and I wanted it to look silver, I would use the cool greys. I wouldn't use the warm greys. I would use the warm greys for a metallic object that wasn't silver. You know, I'm trying to think of an example now, like an old teapot or a piece of machinery or some armour. That's the kind of things I would use these colours for. But if I was drawing, for example, like a silver ring, then I would tend to use the cool greys, because I think it's much more representative of the metal itself. And it's important that you try these things out. Don't just jump straight in, because you're going to ruin a drawing that you've spent a lot of time on, or a colouring page that you have also spent a lot of time on, because as we know, they do take time. Pencil is one of the slowest mediums you're ever going to use, so it's important that you are confident in what you have got in terms of your colour choices, so that you don't end up regretting your picture. I've had a few of those, let me tell you. So you can see now that, you know, now that I'm building this colour up, it is a much more delicate finish, and I think that just fits in more with silver in terms of the actual colour. But as I say, it's a lot of it's to do with reflection, and the items that are in the reflection often broadcast their colour onto the object as well. But I'm not going to complicate things too much. As I say, this wasn't really meant to be a tutorial on methods for colouring metallic objects. This was more for getting the pencil combinations, which is what you all liked. You'd think I was working on a masterpiece here. I'm blending pencils in a sphere. It's not, you know, it's not exactly going to be award-winning art, but I like to get things right. There we go. So you can see the difference between the two, and it's quite a stark contrast, and I think that's quite important. So that is the silvers for the Prismacolors, and I'm going to move on to the golds next. Okay, so I have two different sets of combinations for you, and it's just so that you've got a variation. Generally, as a rule of thumb, when you're picking gold colours, you want to go for the yellowy oranges and into the paler browns that have more of a sort of yellowy orange tinge to them. So the colours that I've picked out here: jasmine sand, goldenrod and sienna brown. So you're looking for these yellowish brown colours, and it's one of those things, again, you can experiment, try different colours, different shades, and see how they work together, and that's how you're going to explore, you know, your different combinations in terms of gold. Generally, loosely speaking, I tend to go for a yellowish colour, a more orangey colour and a lighter brown colour, and that seems to be a good trio in terms of getting a gold colour. So I'm going to start off with my jasmine as my lightest colour. And I'm just doing the exact same method as before that I did up here with the silver ones. And I'm going to leave that little white patch up here again because that is my highlight, because it is a shiny object. And then I'm going in with the sand. And in with the mineral orange. Sorry, not mineral orange, goldenrod. Come on, Gem. Because I'm using 4 colours rather than 3 as I was previously, I'm going light to dark. I kind of switch about anyway. I'm that annoying person that doesn't do it any one sort of set way. But again, this is more just for colour placement rather than any particular reason. And with the sienna brown, I'm just doing this with a really light hand. Because the brown is considerably darker than the other colours, it's important to make sure that you don't go crazy with it, you know, straight off the bat, because you might end up in a situation where you know, something looks quite muddy. But it is a great shadow colour for your gold setting. I'm just starting to blend that in now with the goldenrod. Goldenrod's one of my favourite colours. It's kind of weird, but I like it a lot. For some reason my paper isn't taking this sienna brown very well at all. It doesn't seem to like it much. It's very patchy looking, and I mean, that is really light pressure. I'm not going crazy with it. Oh. I'm taking the goldenrod right over the top of it, and it's just to sort of mesh the colours together a bit better. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my sand colour now. And finally back with my jasmine. Now you can work away, again, because you have the 4 pencils, it does depend on how much room you have. A lot of the time when we are colouring in metallic things, it's only parts of an object, or it's only little sections, so it can be difficult to squish a lot of colour in there. Now you can of course skip a colour. If you were going to use this combination, personally I would leave out the sand and I would just stick with the jasmine, and you know, get an extra couple of layers in there in terms of that lighter colour, because it's going to give you a very, very similar shade. See if I can get this sienna brown to behave itself a little bit. There you go. So that is your first combination. Okay, and for the next combination, It's a similar start, and you will find that as a recurring theme, the lightest colour tends to be the colour that I'll start with to pick from. And we're going to go with the jasmine again. And the jasmine is going to be joined by yellow ochre, mineral orange, that's why I said mineral orange earlier on, and light umber, which is a slightly colder brown, but I just wanted to show you the differences between them. So same method as per, start with the jasmine and just get a coat of that down. So I'm doing exactly the same thing here and nothing new. And then I'm moving on to my yellow ochre. Mineral orange. And because I'm going to the darker colour now, I'm going a bit steadier with this because it is quite a vibrant shade. My stomach's rumbling, that's not good. It is quite early in the morning, it is 8:30, and I am going out to work today onto another farm, so I had to do this early and get it done while I had time, and this happens to be the time that I have. Okay, so now we have sienna brown, and again this is for your shadow area, so go easy with it to begin with. You can always add to it if that's what you want to do. If you feel it's not got enough, you know, if there isn't enough contrast between the colours, then you can always go back and chuck in some more. Now you can see, because I have put this down on top of the yellows and the orange, it has augmented the shade slightly, and that's really what I was looking for, because we do want it to fit in. So mixing the colours with your pencils is definitely, you know, it's a good idea, rather than just putting the brown down straight onto white paper. It's not gonna do you any favours. So I'm just going back over the top of that darkest colour with my I nearly said goldenrod there, wrong pencils, Jim, with the mineral orange. And then I can go back in with my yellow ochre. This section underneath, you can see that in all of these I've left a line underneath. You know, I've stopped the shadow short of the edge of the circle, and that is because it is bounce light. You will get some sort of reflection off the surface of whatever your shiny object's sitting on. So I have made the assumption that it's quite a pale surface, and that's why some of the light, you know, if I do that and the light's coming this way, some of it bounces off and hits back up underneath. That was a bit of a wonky arrow. So that's why you tend to have a paler bit underneath. There are so many different types of gold. I'm back to jasmine now. So many different types of gold, and, you know, colours of gold and shades of gold. So it really is important that you take my advice and experiment with your pencils. Experiment with those pale yellows and into your oranges and the kind of orangey browns. Try out different combinations and see how you get on. So really this combination, what it's doing is it's giving you a slightly darker shadow, and you're going more into brown than you can see there. That's much more sort of orangey looking, whereas this is again slightly darker and slightly dirty. I don't want to say dirty because that's not really true. But you can alter the look of it by how much of each shade that you use as well. You could put a lot more orange in this. You could take your orange up to here if you wanted a sort of much richer feel to it. It's still going to look gold. Just take your time, build up your colours slowly and gradually, and you will get, you know, something that you're looking for. You can't really go wrong with metallics in terms of picking the colours. It's more about the technique. Get it nice and smooth. Our sweltering temperatures haven't lasted long, which is quite nice in a way, but it's still very, very dry. In 8 weeks we've had 2 days of rain, which is absolutely unheard of, and everything is suffering now. We are running out of water, which is ironic for Scotland, really. Okay, there you go. So you can see that these are very, very similar. It's more just a darker shadow colour, but this one's much warmer than this as well. So again, it depends on what else is in the environment that's around the picture. It's going to affect what colours you pick, but that's just another combination for you to play about with. There is a tree outside of the Colour Cave window, and you can see it's kind of casting like funky shadows and things. So I just wanted you to see these in the light, so that you can see them side by side, so you can see the differences between the two colour combinations that I've given you so far. But they're pretty good. So I'm going to try and stay down in this corner. I know like this is like the edge of my desk, but it's just to try and stay out of this sort of dappled area. The sun will shift over just shortly, so we'll be okay after that happens, she says, hopefully. So there are your gold colour combinations for your Prismacolor pencils. If you want to give those a go as a starting point, don't take them as gospel, try out other colours. And we're going to move on to rose gold now. With rose gold, there are 2 schools of thought, and I would just like to add a disclaimer here that I have never coloured anything in rose gold. I have tried out combinations, but I've never actually used them in any of my drawings or my colouring pages. So this is a bit of an experiment, but I have done extensive research, so these are my findings. There seems to be 2 schools of thought when it comes to rose gold, and that is that for the shadow colour you can either use greys or more purpley blues. Personally, I prefer the purpley blues. They seem to sit better on the paper, and it just seems to look more natural. But again, I suppose it'll depend on what else is going into the picture, whether it suits better or not to use the bluey purples or the greys. So I'm going to show you both here in these little circles, and you can decide for yourself. So when it comes to putting together a rose gold combination, really you need to think like skin tones. That's the best way I can describe rose gold, is skin tones with a bit of grey or purple in them. And I don't know if anybody's ever thought about it like that before, but when you're looking at your pencils to pick out colours, that's the colour range that you're going to go for. You're going to go for your flesh tones. So I'm starting off with a rather pathetic looking light peach. It's so small, it's just really sad. And that is going to be my base colour for both of these combinations that we're going to do. So the first one is light peach, and that is going to be joined by blush pink and also by nectar. And then I'm going to go for the bluey purples, so I am going to go for Imperial Violet, and for the very darkest colour I'm going to pick Indigo Blue. Now you have to be really, really careful with the Indigo Blue because it is a really, really dark colour, so you need to go really, really easy with this. I said really an awful lot. These are the Derwent pencil extenders that's kind of like rubbed off now. I really like them. You can get cheaper ones, but I like these ones, they're good. The silver one, they come in packs of 2, and the silver ones fit my Polychromos and the black ones fit my Prismacolors, so that seems like a good deal to me. So I'm just using the same method as before. This is quite difficult for you to see in the light, but bear with me. So that is the light layer down, and I'm going in with the blush pink now. So I'm just trying to make sure that is even. And then I'm going to go in with the nectar. And I've found as well, when I was practicing and sort of checking out the different colour combinations for rose gold, I kind of panicked at one point because it looked really patchy and odd, and you know, the colours just didn't really, I didn't feel as if they were blending well together at all. And I found that when I actually blended it out with my colourless blender, that was when it came together and started to look a bit more like rose gold. Don't panic, everything will be okay. Alright, so now I have the Imperial Violet, and I'm going so gently with this because it is such a harsh, stark stark contrast to the pale pinks. You're going to have to spend quite a lot of time blending this out. I would even suggest, if you're slightly, if you know you have a little bit of trepidation about this, go for a paler purple. You know, if you don't feel brave enough to do this and blend it in properly, you can go for a paler purpley colour, like more towards a lilac. And it obviously it's not going to give you the same impact, but it's a bit easier to blend into your pinks than this darker shade. So I'm just going to take that round. This was the point last time when I was practicing, this was the point where I started to panic. I thought, oh, what have I done? But it'll be okay. And with the indigo, I am literally just going to tickle that very outside edge. Really gently. And you can see that that blends in quite well with the purple colour. Yeah, this is where the work is in the blending of these darker colours into your lighter colours. And I found that I did most of the work with this Nectar shade. And I'm just going all the way over everything that I've done here. And then once you've got that covered up, you can start working towards your highlighted area again with the Nectar. Just start to feather that out a little bit. And then back to my blush pink. And again, I looked at lots of objects that were rose gold, and the shades and hues between them varied so greatly. Some seemed to lean to more towards like yellowy colours, and some seemed to lean more towards like, you know, like pinky, really pinky rose gold. And I think that's where part of the confusion lies with this. It's like you don't really know which way to go with it. And again, it's just trial and error. That's really, I mean, I spent a long time messing about with different pencils and trying to figure out what I was doing, and you know, so I don't think there's any right or wrong answer when it comes to rose gold, if I'm perfectly honest. And again, that's not really something you want to hear, I'm sure, but I'm just not happy with this little corner. I'll try that. Yeah, that's better. So I'm just going to go over this a little bit, just try and sort of blend it all in together. See that I've got a flappy branch. Oh, leaves, how dare you. There we go, that is your first rose gold. I hope you can see that okay. So that's your first rose gold combination. The second one incorporates the greys instead of the purples, so I want to show you that as well. And I have picked a slightly different set of colours as well, again just so that you can see the variation and what it's going to look like. So the colours that I have picked out for the next one, again I'm starting with that light peach. You can see a theme forming here. It is a really good starting colour, and the colours that are going to go along with that are the normal peach, so light peach and normal peach. And also I am going to throw into the mix something that you wouldn't expect, and that is burnt ochre, which is more of a brownie colour. And for the shadow areas, I'm going to go to a cool grey. I tried it with a warm grey and it didn't look right at all. It just didn't fit in. So I went with the cool greys, and I went with 50 and 70% cool grey for the shaded areas. There we go. And we're going to go into the peach. I do find it slightly easier when I'm doing this to work with a slightly blunter pencil. You don't want a really sharp pointy point, just simply because you'll get a smoother lay down if you're working with a blunter pencil tip. Okay, and now I'm going to go into the brown. As I've done before on the previous occasions, I'm going a bit easier with this. I have to say, this is the first time when filming a video for this channel that I've actually been quite nervous about it, and I think it's because with the rose gold it's something that I'm not used to using. You know, normally when I do videos it's things that I know about, because that's obviously the idea, is to give people knowledge of things that you already are quite well versed in, you know, and try and help people out. But I felt it was important to push myself out my comfort zone a little bit and try things out, because we are always learning, all of us are always learning, and I like to learn stuff. So I really wanted to do this because it would be a learning process for me too, and it's just nice that I've got other people to learn with me. Alright, into the greys. So we're kind of into the same situation as we were over here. We need to go really, really steady with this and really take our time and be cautious so that we don't make a disaster of it, because we're kind of at the point now where it's going to get quite difficult to remedy things if they go wrong, because we have quite a lot of pencil down on the paper. So I'm just going to take my time with this grey and make it look fabby. So there we go, I'm on to the darkest one now, and just like I did with the indigo, I'm just, you know, a very, very sort of pale edge. I would say as well, I think if I was going to use this for myself, I may even stop before I get as far as the warm grey, the 70% warm grey, sorry. I think that it might be too much. I would be quite happy just sticking with the 50%. I'm being really careful to blend this out. This is actually, doing this is really good for practicing your blending technique, generally speaking. You know, if you just take a ball shape like this and work with these colours that are so, you know, there's so much contrast between the pink and the grey. If you can get to the stage where you can blend these colours well, then you have made it, you are jamming. Just going to add this in round my bounce light. Just make it a bit more cohesive. And back to peach. Okay, so I'm quite happy with the amount of shadow that I've got there, so I'm going back over it now. I just want to build up this mid-tone peach a little bit because it's kind of bald looking in the middle here. And back in with my light peach, my poor little light peach. Okay, I think I can go more with the burnt ochre at this stage because it's really non-existent. You know, there's really not much of it going on there. And that's just going to help with the greys as well. Just kind of like bring them together a bit more with the pinkier shades. I keep saying pinkier shades, it's peach. It's amazing how much mixing the pencils can change a colour though, because I mean this is essentially a brown and it's an orangey brown. And yet when you layer it over the top of the grey and the peach, it just comes out a whole different shade, which is real nice. Okay, this is just my peach again, so I'm just kind of starting to join these all up now properly. Like joined up writing at school. And then I'm just going to finish off with another go with my light peach. Once again, I'm working really hard with these greys in terms of blending them. I'm like hardcore blending. Two different types of rose gold there. They are both quite different. They both work. I personally prefer this one. I think the purple seems to work better. There you go. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Polychromos now. So in the warm greys, it is warm grey 2, 4 and 6 I have picked. Again, use your discretion, try out different ones. You can go 1, 3, 5 and see how that works out for you as well. But this seemed to be my preferred combination. So I don't have to do as much explaining because the method in which I am doing this is exactly the same as the Prismas. I'm just going to rattle through this and get the colours down so that you can see. But I wanted you to see me do it from start to finish. You know, I just didn't want to have them sort of pre-done and show you them, because you can always learn something from watching someone actually going through the process. Whether it's intentional or not, but I'll try and make this a bit quicker because this is going to be a long ass video. My mid-tone now. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think the warmer shades of the Polychromos are perhaps just not quite as warm as the Prismacolor ones, and that's maybe why I like them better. This paper doesn't like the Polychromos quite as much, but I wasn't going to start fiddling about with a different pad and things for the sake of this video, so you'll just have to bear with me a little bit. So get that darker tone down at the very bottom. This is the darkest grey that I'm using now. So I'm pulling this mid-grey up now towards my highlighted area once again. And I'll go in with my lightest. I'm going over the whole lot, and again this is just to try and start smoothing it out a little bit. Okay, I'm going back in with this mid-grey because I feel this is quite patchy here. So I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit. I feel like the Polychromos as well give a much more sort of delicate finish, which is more in keeping if you're doing something like a silver crown or whatever. I think that it just kind of fits in quite nicely. I like it. And there we go. And in terms of using a blender, it's actually a Derwent blender that I use for my Polychromos. It's one that I had already before I had my Polychromos pencils, and it seems to behave quite well with the Polychromos, so that's just my weapon of choice. I'm okay with that. Okay, as I said, I'm really struggling with shadows and things here today, but you can see the difference there. This is the cold greys in the Prismas, and if I just shift that over slightly, there's the warm greys, so there is a considerable difference in the contrast between this one and in the Prismas. So I'm going to move on now to the cold greys in the Polychromos, and it's the same numbers again. There's no change there, so it's 2, 4 and 6. Ah, that's better. The sun's gone away. Oh, you might be able to see something a bit better now. I don't think my cloud's going to last long that's covered up the sun, but we'll see how we go. I can certainly see better. I'm not squinting as much. Let me take this opportunity while the sun is away so that you can see the differences between these ones. This is much warmer. And I don't know, weirdly I say I just like it better, but out of the three that we've done so far, the cool greys and the Prismacolor are still my favourite. Anyway, right, back to my, I'm into the mid-tone grey here, which is the cold grey 4. And then I'll go in with my darkest grey, which is the 6. Okay, now that I'm happy with that darkest shadow area, I'm just going back in over with my mid grey, which is the 4. Start blending this out a little bit. And then back in with my lightest grey. Down here a bounce light. And then in with my blender. And there we go. So you can see the difference between the two. There is quite a contrast between the warm and the cool greys. So we're going to move on to the golds in the Polychromos now. And when you are picking your golds, it's back to what I was saying before. Go for your yellows, your yellowy oranges. One of the things I like about the Polychromos range is when you get a set, they're organised in their, you know, their particular colour order. And when I'm thinking about golds, I'm just going to bring this over so that you can see the section where your sort of ochre colours are, and that starts with I think it's Naples yellow. Yeah, Naples yellow. Fucking sunlight, sorry guys. Naples yellow through to your burnt sienna. That selection of pencils is the kind of colours you should be thinking about for gold. So bear that in mind, and if you want to experiment with your gold colours, that's the section of pencils where you want to be looking at if you're going to start experimenting. Okay, for this first combination, I am going with the Naples yellow and the dark Naples yellow, followed by brown ochre and burnt sienna. So you can see I've picked from that selection of pencils I was just talking about. Okie dokie, so starting with the Naples yellow. I really don't take much care over this first sort of base layer. I do make sure that I've covered the paper, but I'm not too particular about it because by the time you sort of layer everything up, it's one of those ones as well. I'm aware that this is going to be an incredibly long video, so I am not taking as much care as I perhaps would if I was working on a drawing of my own or a colouring page. So just bear that in mind, you know, don't go hell for leather. Take your time with it. I'm on to the dark Naples yellow now, and this is just such a lovely transition from the paler colour. So I really like it. We'll get that going. There's this shadow back again. I am terribly sorry about this, guys, but I have no option, I'm afraid. I am at this stage now where, most of you know by now, I do film my videos quite far in advance. And that is mainly due to, number one, my occupation. And secondly, because of my recent wedding, I also have my honeymoon, which is... it's a number of weeks away. The reason for that is because we have to harvest first before we go on holiday. So harvest time is horrendously busy. It is very, very hard work. It is very antisocial. Not only do I have to go and help physically, but I also have to try and keep Mr. Jem afloat because he will work an insane amount of hours and he will go out and work during the night and things, so it's kind of up to me to keep the ship afloat, as it were. So it is quite a high pressure time, and I've sort of prepared for that in advance, and that's why I have prepared my videos in advance, so far in advance in fact, because I may not have time while we're actually harvesting to do a huge amount. I'm on to my darkest colour now, which is the burnt sienna, and basically we'll only be finished harvest a week or two and then we are away for our honeymoon, so it's quite important for me to get these videos done now so that you guys aren't left without any videos. So that's the reasoning for it. So that's why you're having to put up with crappy lighting this morning. I'm terribly sorry, but I would rather have this and be able to show you these kinds of things than leave you without any videos at all. And as I say, this particular video is one I've been wanting to do for such a long time, and I thought, no, it has to be done, and today was the day. So right, I'm going back to my brown ochre now, and I'm just going over the top of what I have in there previously with the darker colour. Start to blend it out a little bit. So yeah, thoroughly looking forward to the honeymoon, and by the time it comes round it will be so ready for it. so ready for it. See, harvest is just crazy. It's I actually dislike it more than lambing. I would rather have to do 2 lambing seasons in a year than do harvest. Lambing's different in terms of you're still back to sort of, you know, really awkward hours, and you've got to get up and bottle feed during the night sometimes, and it can be quite stressful because it's wee lives you're looking after, whereas crops it's a bit different. But the problem with harvest is it is very, very weather dependent, so we've got to go while the going's good in case the weather turns, so it can be a little bit frantic, but it's just one of those things that we have to do. Okay, so just in with my blender pencil now, try and smooth this out a little bit. I really like the browns for the shadow, and these pencils are just appeals to me. Okay, that is your first colour combo, and just compare those to the Prismacolor ones. It's much warmer, I think, so if you're going for more of a yellow gold, then that's usually a good option. With this combination we're going into slightly warmer orangey tones and slightly warmer browns as well. Just get this down. And then into the light yellow ochre, which again is quite a warm shade. If you heard that clump, that was Jock, my collie, throwing himself down. He can't lie down delicately, he has to chuck himself down. I have noticed it is very much a collie trait. They're just a bit ungainly when they're doing that. I don't know why. And then I'm moving into the green gold. I found that adding the green gold, it just kind of gives it more of a richer colour. You could actually skip the green gold and it wouldn't make a huge amount of difference, but I felt that it just gives it a little bit more dimension by adding that 4th colour in, and that was, you know, a sort of addition that I decided to chuck in afterwards. Into the terracotta, and this is where it really starts to warm up now. I would be quite tempted as well to bring the terracotta and the green gold quite far up, maybe up here. Depending on what it was I was colouring and where my shadows and things were. I might just do it for fun. And the darkest colour is the burnt sienna. You can go a bit heavier with the burnt sienna than you would have been able to do with some of the other shadow colours, just because it is a much paler shade, and you know, you can go to town a bit more with that. So I'm just going to work my way in reverse now back through the colours and build everything up. And you can vary between the terracotta and the green gold, you can adjust how much of each of those pencils you use to alter how warm you want this particular shade to look. It is a good idea to use your lighter colours to go back over some of your shadow colours as well, just to sort of bring it all together and make it a bit more sort of cohesive. I'm back to the light yellow ochre now. And finally the Naples yellow. Oh, it's a bit heavy-handed there. See how much this is yellowing up now because I'm using the lightest colour over it. It was beginning to look a bit too orangey there. It is still quite orangey, but again, as I was just saying there, you can alter the amount of the terracotta and the green gold that you add in. You know, you can lessen them if you want it to be a slightly less rich variety, as it were. When I look at this particular colour combination, I think more of like treasures that you would find, just because it's so deep and rich looking. Okay, I'll get this a blend out now. The shadow is also a lot more subtle because we've used such a pale brown. Again, you can use that to your advantage. And trying things out, finding out what works for you. There we go. So that gives you two varieties, one that's a lot more defined than the other. You can see those golds together. It's only a slight difference in them between the two different sets of pencils. Obviously it depends on what set of pencils you have. Moving on to the rose golds now. Go for the flesh colours, look at them first. So that starts with the light flesh, and funnily enough, if you keep them in order, they are next door to the gold shades that we were talking about earlier. So if you're looking to experiment, that's the kind of range of pencils that you're looking for your main colours. So like we were talking about earlier with the rose gold pencils, I'm going to do one of these with using grey as the shadow colour, and I'm going to do one as the kind of purpley blues as the shadow colour. So the colours that I've got for this first one are light flesh, dark flesh, Venetian red, blue violet, and dark indigo. Now the same rule applies here. You can skip out the dark indigo altogether if you feel it's going to be too much, but just go easy with the purples. Preserving this white area up here, and then in with the dark flesh. Yay, the sun's gone away again. And Venetian red. Now moving on to the shadow colours now. So this is the blue violet. So like I said before, we're just going to go really steady with this. Really light hand. And we're going to use the Venetian red to really blend it in. So that's the two sort of key pencils when it comes to getting in a bit of a shadow, but making it look like it's supposed to be there, and you've not just stuck a purple pencil down on your paper. So we're using a really light hand here. You can see it is going down quite well though. It's not like it's non-existent. And just a really fine line of the dark indigo around the very, very edge. So that just really gives you some definition of your shadow. Because with a lot of metallic objects, I'm sure I've said this already and the video is so long, I can't remember what I said at the beginning, there are quite often very defined areas of dark and light depending on the shape of the metal and what is reflecting off of it. So I'm just going back in with the purple, just to blend that indigo into it. And then the Venetian red is really, we're going to use that and we're going to go over it. Really blend it in. Dark flesh. It's a little bit too heavy with the Venetian red down the bottom here. Try and blend that out a little bit as well. And then back to the light flesh. I'm just going to go over everything but I'm going to bring it round a bit more towards my highlighted area as well, because that is still very pale there. That is perhaps slightly patchier than I would like. However, let's see how it blends out. I really do like the purple for the shadow colour for rose gold. I think you know, the more I look at it and the more that I actually do it, the more I think to myself, yeah, if I'm going to use rose gold, I definitely go with the purple shadow rather than the grey shadows. Again, I suppose it would depend on the piece. There we go. So you can see that is very, very, very similar to the Prismacolor one. There's not a lot of difference in it. We'll move on to a different combination and I'll show you with the greys now. I'm going to start with the light flesh, and that is going to be joined by cinnamon, sanguine, and I am going to use the cold greys. I did try with the warm greys and it didn't come out too well. So I'm going to try with the cold greys, and I am going to use cold grey 3 and cold grey 5. So here's the light flesh, get that down, lovely, jubbly, and then we're going in with the cinnamon, and in with the sanguine, there we go. Now the greys, this is where it gets kind of funky. I don't know, I'm just not that keen on them, I don't think. So this is my lighter grey, which is the cold grey 3. And I found that it doesn't take very well on top of the colours that we've already got laid down, and your gut reaction is to start pressing harder, and that is the wrong thing to do. So you just have to persevere and work with it. It is quite a pale shade of grey. You know, you're not going to get great big harsh lines with it. So whereas before we had to go really easy with some of these other colours, with this grey you don't have to worry quite as much. It's a bit more wishy-washy. But when we go in with the darker grey, this is when it really sort of starts to pick up. But it is a much more subtle shadow than the purple, so again that might suit you better for whatever it is that you're working on. I see the idea behind doing such a lengthy video was to give you options, and also the thinking, you know, the thought processes behind how I got to these colours, so that you can take that information away with you and you can go and try different things for yourself. I don't want to go too crazy with the sanguine because it is quite an odd colour. It's just a bit weird. I would spend more time probably with the cinnamon, you know, going over everything, rather than the sanguine. I would say that the cinnamon is the true mid-tone. I know we have 4 pencils, but I would say it's the one that most closely fits in with the idea of rose gold. So if you're wanting to, you know, build up layers and things, I would go with the cinnamon, because you're not going to lose that rose gold effect quite as much with that as you will do if you use the sanguine, because the sanguine's quite orange, and we don't want a lot of orange in this really. And just back to the light flesh, just to round this all off now. Blend this in a bit here. And grab my trusty blender pencil. And there we have it, that is your final rose gold. So there you have them in all their glory. Once again, there's just a quick list of all the colours that we've used for the Polychromos. So if you want to take a note of them, you can always pause it here and have a look. And for the Prismacolors, that was your list of colours there for the Prismacolor pencils. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. It was a considerable amount of work, but I'm really satisfied with it because I've learned something as well, and I've learned preferences about things that I've not actually used in any of my drawings, so it's been really helpful to me too. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That would be absolutely grand. We are still expanding, which is quite nice. We are over 300 subscribers now, and I hope that that will continue and that people get something from me doing exercises like this. I do apologise for such a long video. I do put out 2 videos a week, once on a Monday, once on a Friday, and as a combination of product reviews, you know, coloured pencil stuff like this, a little bit of drawing and some adult colouring. So if that sounds like it's up your street, feel free to subscribe and join us in the Colour Cave. We are a happy family here, and the more the merrier. So thank you very much again for joining me, and we shall see you in the next video. Have a good day, guys. Bye bye.